few months ago, I was doing some rust control under my girlfriend's Silverado and came across some torn boots. These are the tie rod ends that were put in by the shop that did the lift about, I want to say about 2.5 years ago, and looks like they got a little carried away with the greasing. According to Fabtech, this is usually the result of too much grease. So a set of replacements was definitely in order. I picked these guys up from Fabtech, and these look really good. This is what the boot is supposed to look like. Now, these don't come pre-greased or anything, but it does have a little port on top for the Zerk fitting, so you can grease it up. That little guy comes in a separate bag, and we'll thread him back on there, and as soon as we're done, we'll go ahead and grease it up. I'm parked on an incline, so these wheel chucks are a must. Don't want to be rolling back in the middle of a project, so yep. Now, you don't have to lift the truck and take the wheels off to do this particular project, but for the sake of the video, and for the sake of your ability to see what I'm doing, and for me to work a little bit easier, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. You guys get the idea. Anyways, let's go ahead and get this first tire off. I'm going to use my impact wrench here. In fact, I'll speed it up so that we can get to the good stuff. Alright, with the tire out of the way, we can work and see a lot easier. But before we get started, jack stands. I'll take this guy, pop it under the passenger side, and one more, and we'll put this guy under the driver's side. And we'll fast forward through another tire removal, just so we can finally drop the truck onto the jack stands. Alright, looks good. This 15/16 wrench is what you'll need to loosen the jam nut right here, and that way we can get the tie rod end off. A couple of hits with a sledgehammer makes it really easy. Just back it off a quarter turn so you don't mess with the alignment too much. This is the next target. I'm going to use my impact wrench to remove this guy with a 22mm deep socket. God, I love this impact wrench. This thing is a literal cheat code for this kind of work, I swear. Okay, so with the nut removed, a couple of whacks, and that's it. Now we can just unthread the entire tie rod end and put the new one in. These things come off relatively easy. I mean, there's just no effort once you get that jam nut loosened up, so. Man, I'm getting a real good look at the tear on this boot. I mean, look at this thing. It's just completely breached. God. Okay, now we get the new one and we thread it on in place of the old one. And once we got this thing completely seated, we just turn that jam nut so that it's secured. There it is. I like to address oxidation every time I get a chance when I'm doing stuff like this, so I'm going to wipe this down and see just how bad it looks. It looks like it's not terrible, but it's a decent amount. A little bit of the old wire brush treatment should take care of this real quick. Now that's what I like to see. Okay, so we're gonna put a little bit of rust reformer on that. I covered up the coilover so I don't get any overspray on it. Now we just give it a few minutes to dry. The rest is pretty straightforward. Just start putting everything back together. Got the lock nut. Thread it on. Just get it on there until it's tight enough. I'm going to reuse the 22mm deep socket on my torque wrench, which I'm setting to about 60 foot-pounds. This is what Fabtech recommends for this part. Okay, now we can move on to the jam nut. This 16mm wrench will help you greatly by accessing the notch here on the inner tie rod. Just place it right here, and then grab the 15/16 wrench to go ahead and start tightening the jam nut back into place. Alright, next we're going to thread on the Zerk fitting here so we can get some grease in there. I'm going to use a 9/32 1/4" socket to tighten it up just a little bit more. You don't want to go crazy with this one. Just a few decent snug turns and you should be good. Okay, time for the grease gun. I consulted with Fabtech over the phone about how many pumps of grease, and they basically said just do it until the boot just looks, filled, but not, ballooned out, obviously. And that, folks, is how you replace the tie rod end link on a 2018 Silverado 1500. Repeat the same on the driver's side for similar results.